Welcome to this explainer. Today, we are diving straight into some ancient Buddhist psychology to explore two absolutely radical concepts from a foundational text called the Da Jidu Lun. We're going to look at how this ancient wisdom actually solves the ultimate human problem, which is, you guessed it, suffering. And listen, we aren't just talking about abstract philosophy here. We're breaking down a highly practical, strategic framework for mastering your own mind using two very specific tools: patience and effort. Let's get into it. Here is our roadmap for today. We're going to hit 6 main stages: the 2 keys to awakening, the armor of true patience, the poisoned arrow analogy, the engine of relentless effort, conquering the laziness thief, and finally, the bodhisattva's ultimate path. All right, starting with section 1, the 2 keys to awakening and the solutions to universal suffering. We need to start by totally redefining a word we toss around every single day, and that's patience. In this text, it's called Dharmak Shanti. Now, this isn't just about putting up with daily annoyances like waiting in a terribly long line or dealing with traffic. We're talking about a profound structural patience. It's literally the capacity to endure the deepest internal and external extremes without losing your center, without reacting, and crucially, without attachment. It's basically the absolute bedrock of a stable mind. Moving right along to section 2, the armor of true patience and withstanding the world. The text actually does this brilliant thing where it divides our daily struggles into 2 distinct fronts. First, we've got external non-mind forces. These are just the harsh physical realities of existence, right? Cold, heat, hunger, disease, severe weather. Then you have internal mind forces: anger, doubt, desire, arrogance, and sorrow. To actually achieve awakening, you have to realize that both of these forces are constantly assaulting your peace. Dharmaka Shanti is the armor that protects you from the storm outside and the storm inside. There is this fantastic quote that captures the Bodhisattva's mindset so perfectly. It says, "Hunger and thirst are the outer army, afflictions and defilements are the inner thieves. I must defeat both to achieve awakening." The text doesn't treat these challenges casually at all. Bodily discomforts and mental distractions are literal armies trying to lay siege to your mind. You really cannot compromise with them. Just take a look at this overwhelming list. These are our daily psychological battles mapped out perfectly across the 10 divisions of Mara's inner army. Now, Mara in Buddhist psychology represents illusion and death, basically the ultimate antagonist to awakening. And honestly, notice how recognizable these are: sleepiness, fear, doubt, anger, craving, even the desire for false fame. When you sit down to focus or meditate, which of these soldiers attacks you first? Distraction isn't just random. It's an organized resistance against your progress. Okay, section 3, the poisoned arrow analogy and the danger of distraction. So to handle these mental armies, we need absolute laser focus. Which brings us to one of the most famous parables in Buddhist philosophy. Imagine this. You've just been shot by a poisoned arrow. You're bleeding, the poison is actively entering your bloodstream, and a doctor is standing right there, ready to pull it out. Are you really going to stop the doctor and demand to know the name of the archer? Would you ask what kind of wood the arrow is made from? No way. You tell the doctor to pull it out immediately so you can survive. The Buddha's sharp rebuke here is just incredibly powerful. He says, "You will die before you get the answers, for you are smeared with the poison of attachment to false views." It brilliantly illustrates that obsessing over unanswerable, abstract philosophical questions is a massive trap. It's an intellectual distraction that stops our immediate salvation from the suffering we are experiencing right now. The poison is already in us. We need to remove it, not debate the nature of the bow. Which leads us to section 4, the engine of relentless effort, or Virya Paramita. Once we've got our armor of patience on and we've stopped asking useless questions, we need the energy to actually push forward. There is a massive distinction here between worldly and spiritual actions. Worldly actions, things like basic charity, standard morality, simple patience, they can be driven by a fear of punishment or just a desire to look good. Almost anyone can do them, and they just lead to a temporary peace. But spiritual actions, true Zen, profound wisdom, those are entirely different. They absolutely require Virya Paramita, unyielding, pure internal effort. Without that relentless drive, ultimate liberation just isn't going to happen. Let's move to section 5, conquering the laziness thief, and the story of the forest monk. So, what happens when that required effort starts to wane? The Daza Jalun tells this incredibly vivid, slightly absurd story of a monk who goes out to the forest to practice. But Instead of actually working hard, he just decides to take a nap in the woods. Suddenly, he's jolted awake by basically the ultimate alarm clock. A terrifying spirit has animated a dead corpse, and it is violently dancing and threatening him in the middle of the night. And the spirit just glares at him with this bizarre threat. "Little monk in the forest, why are you lazy? If you aren't afraid by day, I'll return like this by night." The sheer shock of this horrific vision snaps the monk completely out of his laziness. He realizes he's wasting his precious life, and that instantly sparks the relentless effort he needs to finally achieve enlightenment. I love this because it perfectly maps out the momentum of true effort. It's a clear three-step progression. First, you have to acknowledge the raw desire to act, snapping out of the lethargy. Second, you maintain continuous, unbreakable movement. You can't just start and stop. It's got to be relentless. And finally, that momentum transforms into an unyielding, selfless non-attachment. It's like a tiny stream of water eventually breaking a massive rock. Finally, we arrive at Section 6, the Bodhisattva's ultimate path, where we bring it all together. So how do patience and effort synthesize? Well, they act like the two wings of a bird. On one hand, you have the armor of patience. That's your shield. It allows you to endure a chaotic world without being destroyed by the elements or your own inner demons. But armor alone isn't going to win the battle, right? You also need the sword of effort. That's your active weapon. It cuts through the lethargy, destroys illusions, and gives you the sheer power to actively save yourself and others. You really need both to succeed. Ultimately, through this relentless effort and profound patience, we reach the highest realization in this whole framework, and that is non-duality. It's the understanding that there is literally no separation between the self that is enduring the suffering and the external world that is causing it. The inner mind and the outer world are realized to be of one empty, tranquil nature. You stop fighting the universe because you realize you kind of are the universe. So here is the big question I want you to take away from this explainer today. The text reminds us that the world is inherently filled with challenges. The fire of the three realms is always burning around us. When those fires surround you, when the inner army of doubt and exhaustion starts attacking, what are you going to do? Will you succumb to the laziness thief and remain in the shadows? Or will you put on the armor of profound patience and draw the sword of relentless effort? The choice, as always, is entirely yours. Thanks so much for joining me on this deep dive, and I will see you in the next explainer.